Oh, Pedro, how I love you. How I love your coffee. And this week we're off to Colombia and Pedro and Nelsie's farm, La Chorrera.
My name is Steve Layton, and I travel the world finding amazing and delicious coffee for you to drink at home. Some make coffee difficult to understand and complicated, but here it's my job to make it easy and fun and tell you what's in my mug.
So Pedro and Nelsie are the owners of La Chorrera and are a Colombian success story. I remember when I first met them both back in 2012. I can clearly remember Pedro being quite unimpressed by another coffee tourist coming through and told me that I just needed to pay more money for his coffee. And at that time, I hadn't actually bought any, so by paying anything, I guess he's technically paying more money. But he was looking for a new person to sell to because the last person had come for a year and then not bought it the following year. And I was also looking for a new relationship in Colombia. So I kind of liked his spark. And Nelsie, his wife, was super balanced for him because she was very welcoming and warm and he was super cold and very unimpressed. Fast forward to now, and the meeting couldn't be more different. He's super excited to see us, happy with the partnership that he has with Has Been, and me super happy with the partnership with them. And the reason that that's come around was we had a plan to start to give him more money. So if Pedro could give us better quality, we could pay some more. So we came up with a plan, hatched with our export partners, Caravella, that would separate each day's lots for us, and they would send those lots to Stafford. Here we would cut them and give them a score. And if they scored below 84, we wouldn't buy it, or 84 or below. If it scored 85 to 86, we would set that aside and that would go into our decaf. And that's also done in Colombia with the sugarcane process. And if it scored 87 to 88, it would go into what's called our La Chorrera estate lot, which is what we have here. And anything 89 or above would be kept separate as a micro lot. This has been super successful. With two of the lots appearing in the World Barista Championships just last year, and placing really, really high, even considering that they're not a geisha or a kind of big show-off coffee, but they're just a Caturra that is like balanced and sweet and really complex. That makes me really, really happy. The whole family works on the farm. So Pedro and Nelsie's children, who we've got Alberio, Edilson, we have Sandra, we have Hermes, we have Diana and Monica. The farm has been going through a big expansion, lots of replanting from when we first started working with the family. They've planted 3 hectares of pink Bourbon, which is a cherry that is quite unique. It's not actually Bourbon, I don't think, and I think it's a unique varietal for the region, but it shares lots of its properties and has a pinkish colour to it when it's growing on the tree. They planted a small plot of geisha after talking about it not being great, but we're going to try that and see how it goes. They have 25,000 Caturra trees, they have 70,000 Colombia trees, and they have 2,000 Castillo trees. And when you bring in that pink Bourbon, it's going to get really, really big. The biggest change I've seen is that Pedro and Nelsie have now moved to live on the farm. Previously, they'd lived at the bottom of the farm, nearer to the town. But because of Pedro's new enthusiasm, he decided he needed to be closer to the action. So he's given his house to his oldest son, so that the children of his grandchildren can get to school easier. And he's moved right up to the farm and right onto the mill, so he's there every night. And another impressive part is that Pedro's trained everybody in the family to do every part of the process. So if someone's not available, they can all do the work to the very highest level. And this year, when I visited, one of the happiest things I think's happened to me was Pedro just said thank you. He just said thank you for paying more year on year. Thank you that he's been able to use that money to improve the mill, the house, and the farm, and that he's able to look after his family better. And just thank you for how proud he is that he's producing this amazing coffee. And kind of back was like, there's nothing to thank me for. I don't just give them extra money. They've earned it. The quality year on year is getting better and better. We reject less lots, which means that we they don't have to sell it in the commodity market, and we approve more micro lots, and that's where the real extra money can come from, because we can charge you more money for it, so they get more money from us, and it's like just a really sustainable way of doing it. One of the success stories, I think, of some of the work that we're doing across the world, Colombia is probably one of the cleanest and easiest stories to share. Okay, so we're going to cup the La Chorrera, and this is a coffee that I cup a lot. As I've said, I cup every day's lot of this. So it's one I know kind of inside out, and I know when they're good and when they're very few are bad actually these days, but when they're not as good. So here we're getting a little bit of tropical fruit come through, some apricot, a little bit of like a fudge sweetness to it as well, and finishes with a beautiful florality. See, I can say the word sometimes. It's a delicious coffee, and it's one that I recommend you cup too, just because it is so distinct in its flavours, and such a complex and interesting coffee. So Colombia is the second largest producer of coffee in the world, and is the largest producer of washed coffee and Arabica coffee, and its production is only second to that of Brazil. The country is well known for its high quality, and about half of its exports normally get sent to the US, with the rest coming into Europe as the second biggest importer of. It normally exports about 12.5 million bags, and domestic consumption is about 2 million bags, which is actually quite high for a country. That has been promoted by things like Juan Valdez and the rise of the middle classes. I don't like the term middle classes, but I'm going to use it, who have started to go out and enjoy coffee, during lunch breaks and after work and things. Colombia, for the main, only produces washed Arabica coffee. There are some natural examples out there, but for the main, they produce washed. And there are 3 prominent varieties that are grown in Colombia. And the coffee tends to get referred to from the regions it comes from. They've broken it down into some very small regions. This washed Arabica that comes from the town of Pitalito. Pitalito lies in the southern part of Huila, in the valley of Labos, and is a southern area of Colombia, and is at the foot of the Andes Mountains. This massive mountain range is the birthplace of the Magdalena River, which travels north to the Caribbean coast. Pitalito is the second largest city of the department of Huila, and has approximately 125,000 people living in it, and is considered to be one of the largest areas of coffee production in Colombia. Okay, so time for the tasting. Ooh, my glasses go all steamy when I do that. That's fun. So this for me, full of tropical fruit, as I've already said. Apricot, like a fudge sweetness and aftertaste. A little bit of lychee, and not something you find often in coffee. I find it a handful of times, but I think it's just because it's so clean and it has like a real juiciness to it that you get this wonderful lychee flavour coming through. And full of flowers, like it's a big floral bowl of coffee. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining me. Please do come back again soon. And in the meantime, please remember, life is too short for bad coffee.